Welcome back to the chess piece project. So in this tutorial, we're going to cover the actual bishop here. So if you can see here, I actually created the structure here same way as the previous tutorial with the chess, with the pawn and the rook, basically using the path outline and using the revolve tool. So since that's redundant, I'm not going to kind of review that. I'm going to basically go over the next part, which is the top pieces here. And looking at them, I don't know. I'm not as interested in this asymmetrical design as I am in this more symmetrical design up here, this sort of pincher quality of the top. So I'm thinking I'm going to do something like that instead. But it'll be very similar. I mean, if you look at this, it's basically a sphere that's basically like a half dome, and there's a cylinder here, and then this is basically a torus that has been part of it deleted. So we're going to kind of work with the torus concept here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift select these three and just hide them temporarily just by hitting the H key. And we're going to start a new top here. And again, we're going for more of a symmetrical design. So again, I'm thinking a little bit more like this one, where it is like this. So what I think I'll do is, I don't think I need to look at this. It's very simple kind of form. I think I'll kind of just like reference it every once in a while. But what I want to do is add a torus to my scene here. So my poly modeling shelf, I have a torus here. And you can see it comes in quite large. And so we can go to the poly torus input here in the channel box, and we can start changing some of the things like the radius. And you can type in values here, or if you have the radius selected here, you can hold the middle mouse button and interactively change that value. The section radius is the interior part. Kind of think of it like the interior versus the exterior. And so I just want to get it to a certain amount and then rotate it on this axis here, the Z, and type in 90 degrees here. And I know it has to be thicker than what it is now, but I just want it to be a little bit thinner. And let's increase that interior radius. And it looks like maybe, let's see, we'll type in a value of like 0.8 maybe. And whoa, way too big. Hang on a sec. I think it was 0.08 I wanted. There we go, that's better. Now let me go to my view here. I kind of want it to match the scale of this one. Again, even though we're going to kind of do a different thing here. So I'm going to scale it up, grab the yellow cube in the center here, just to kind of scale it up a little bit, and then kind of move it into place. Something like that looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete basically this section, this section, this section, this section. So these four sections here. And the way I can do this is I can go into face mode by right clicking, go into face mode. You can also go to your modeling toolkit and click on face. And then I'm going to click on one of these faces, and I'll use the selection tool here, the top arrow tool for this. Hold the shift key and double click, and that will select the entire loop. So again, one click here with shift and then double click. One shift and double click. Again, I'm holding shift the whole time. So one click and then double click. And now I have these four selected. Now I can tap spacebar and go to my 3D view, and you can kind of see those are indeed those areas selected. And I can just delete them by hitting the backspace or delete key. Now then we have this issue of basically an open piece of geometry, which we usually don't want. So unless it's hidden, and I'm going to go to edge mode, click on the edge, and double click this edge loop just by double clicking on one part of it. And you can go to mesh and go down here to fill hole, and that will fill it up. So I can do that with both sides here. Double click, and now I can just hit the G key, repeat the action. Now this geometry isn't great the way it is right now, so I'm not gonna, I'm gonna pause the video pretty much while I do this, but I'm gonna share with you how you would correct this geometry, because you can see we have a huge n-gon here, more than four sides. Basically, this huge flat face needs some geometry going across, and I'll demonstrate that using what's known as the multi-cut tool here. So you click on the multi-cut tool, and what will happen is as you come around here, you'll see it kind of snaps to these verts. And the way it works, you left click on a vert, and then you move across to the other section, and you try and find a line that is equal distance, or kind of lined up, like if you're looking at straight across like this, which I guess would be this line. And then you left click, and then you get a line. And if you want to end that, you right click. So it's left click, then right click. And it's basically very repetitive, but I'm basically left clicking with the mouse, left click with mouse, and then right click. And here I have essentially a 5-sided polygon. So I'm going to want to create a triangle here by left clicking and then right click to create a little triangle there. So each of these, again, I just go over, left click, rotate around, left click, and then right click with the mouse. So one more time, I'll just do one more, left click, and then right click. So I will pause the video while I do both sides here, but basically that's the process. Okay, and so here you can see I'm done. And when you're done with this tool, just make sure you click on the top arrow to escape out. Then you can go into shaded solid mode here. So what I'm going to do now is, looking at this reference, I'm going to go back to the photo reference here just one more time. You can see how it's a little bit closer together, this little gap, and I like that it's circular in here, so I'm kind of doing a modification of this. But I do want these tips to kind of go up a little bit higher. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my side view here, and again I'm going to go into edge loop mode, and I'm going to double click on this edge loop here, and I'm just going to hit W, and basically I can pull this geometry forward. Actually, I made a mistake because these are faces that are not connected. I need to grab all these faces in the front here, so I need to go into face mode, not edge mode, and then I'll just hold the shift key and select all these faces here. So just got to go down here and select them just like that, rotate around, do the same thing on here. And again, I'm just holding shift key as I click on them. There we go, now I got them selected. And then in here I'm going to hit R for scale tool, and I want to scale them in a little bit. I want them to go up like that, and then I'll hit W, and right now it's set to the component. I want to change it to world view. So if you double click on the arrow tool, just make sure that the axis orientation is set to world, and now I can drag up like this to get this kind of more narrow kind of quality here. And basically then in this view, I think I would like these to be scaled in a little bit. So I'm going to grab the scale tool, which is right here, has the hotkey of R, and I'm going to grab the scale and scale in this way, so it just gets a little bit thinner like that. I just think this looks kind of cool, like a almost like a horn-like quality here. Now if I want to poof it out more, I could select individual faces and pull them out, and that's kind of fun too. I'll show you a little trick here. If I select this face and I just follow along here, instead of having to select all the faces in here, if I double click on the face at the end here, I will select it, and it doesn't look like I select the right one. So let me try this one. I think it's this one and this one. You get the entire loop minus the faces on that side. So I can select that one, and then I can hold the shift key on here and shift key here and double click, and I will have selected that part. Now I'm thinking 3 of these might be kind of cool. So I'll hold shift key and double click on there, and then I want to do the same thing on the other side. So I kind of want to match them. So one trick I can do is I can go into wireframe mode and kind of see which one it is. I think it's this one, so I'll hold shift key and then double click, and then it looks like I grabbed it. So if I go back to 5, you can see it there. So again, hold shift, click on this one, and then double click, and then shift click on this one and double click. It's an awesome way to select faces, is just you can select between the 2 loops. Now I can scale them out a little bit and kind of just give them a different kind of quality. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to scale that out a little bit. And then what I'll do is I'm going to hold the shift key and drag over the entire selection. So watch this, I'm going to drag over the entire selection here. What that'll do is that'll reverse my selection. So now I have the other parts that are selected, and I could scale them in perhaps. So I'm just going to grab the center cube and kind of scale them in a little bit and see what happens. The other thing I can try and do is maybe I push them in this way and just get kind of an interesting kind of form. That's what I'm kind of going for here. That looks kind of cool. And if I hit number 3 here, you kind of see the effect here that's going on. I kind of like that. It's got a more iconic kind of quality to it. It's got a nice sharp edge there, which is really cool. So now the only thing next to do is to basically move it up a little bit and set it up so it's on the top of the geometry here. So if we look at this example, it's basically, connected to the base, just piercing the geometry a little bit. So it's up to you on how much of that geometry. I think that looks pretty good though, right there. So that's my bishop in a nutshell. In the next tutorial, we'll cover the king and then the queen eventually. So, and then the knight, of course. Until next time, see you soon. Cheers.